My name's Judy, and I'm the new office manager at OK Cycle and Adventure Tours. And tonight's presentation is Visiting Flanders, Cycling, Beer, Chocolate, and More. And our featured speaker will be Marco Frank from Visit Flanders. I'm going to start with just a brief introduction about OK Cycle Tours, just in case you don't know who we are. Thanks for joining us. If you have questions, please type them into the chat. Anything we don't have time to answer tonight will be answered by a follow-up email. So if you have a question, leave it for us. If we can get to it, we will. If we can't, we'll send a general email out afterwards to answer everyone's questions. OK Cycle and Adventure Tours is a full-service TICO licensed travel agency, and we specialize in active vacations. Our motto is anywhere in the world you want to go, we can take you there. We do bicycle tours all over the world. We do boat and bike tours, the more relaxing version of a bike tour. We do hiking and trekking tours. And we also do adventure tours. And here's just a brief introduction to the OK Cycles Tour team. Manny is the founder and CEO. Manny founded OK Cycle and Adventure Tours in 1995. His vast experience in cycle adventure travel includes 20 years of organizing and riding the OK Tour, a 5-day, 614-kilometer ride from Ottawa to Kennebunkport, Maine, and 8 years leading cycling trips throughout Europe. Over the last 25 years, he has developed a worldwide network of partnerships and friendships with other tour operators. In addition, Manny has cycled in many countries, including New Zealand, Poland, Taiwan, and many European countries. Manny is passionate about cycling adventure and the opportunities it has given him to experience magnificent scenery, varied experiences, and friendships with other adventure travelers. He's also an expert on the more relaxing adventures offered by bike and boat tours. Judy Andrew Peel, that's me. Office manager and licensed travel advisor. I'm Australian and English by birth and Canadian by choice. Judy has lived in several countries, including Germany from 1997 to 2001, where she traveled around Western and Eastern Europe with her husband and 2 small children. Now that the children are no longer small, Judy and her husband Harold have taken several extended vacations to Asia, Central and South America. When Judy's not working, she can be found running and cycling around Ottawa or planning her next vacation. Ross Tavel. Ross is a new member of the sales team with a great depth of knowledge in culture, culinary, boating, fishing, golf, and travel. At a very young age, Ross was exposed to travel and visited several countries around the world. This is where his passion to love and learn how other people lived grew. His exploits eventually led to Ross graduating with a degree in anthropology from Syracuse University. Ross's main focus is on Western Europe adventure travel. Howard Geller. Howard was born and raised in Toronto, but has called Ottawa his home for the last 30 years. Howard and his wife, Barbara, have been married for over 30 years and have 2 grown children, Erica and Lauren, both who currently live in Toronto. In addition to the travel industry, Howard has a wide range of accounting and financial experience in a variety of industries. These industries include software development, real estate, construction, property management, as well as nonprofit and government agencies. Howard is an avid golfer in all kinds of weather, and he and his wife, Barbara, have taken numerous cruises throughout the Caribbean and into South America. So at this point, I want to introduce you to tonight's speaker, Marco Frank from Visit Flanders. Marco is in charge of marketing Flanders, Belgium through the Travel Trade Network in North America. He works closely with tour operators and travel agencies to bring the best travel experiences to their clients. Marco is an experienced marketing and business development leader who has worked for over 20 years in and around travel, media, and technology companies. And most importantly, he not only promotes and markets Flanders by words, but he also lives the Flemish lifestyle, which means many kilometers on the bike and the occasional Belgian beer and chocolate. Previously, Marco was the director of marketing for Scenic Cruises, a luxury river cruise operator. He was instrumental in establishing Scenic Cruises' presence in the United States market and in growing brand awareness and the sales of Scenic Cruises in cooperation with trade and travel agent partners. Marco obtained an undergraduate degree in marketing from the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, an MBA from the Carletti Universiteit Laval in Flanders, and I know I said that wrong, and recently a political science degree from the University of Hagen in Germany. And with that, I am going to attempt to pass things over to Marco. This may take me a minute because it's technical.
All right, no worries. Okay, good evening, everyone. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Happy to be here. Happy that you could join us tonight. Let me just see that we can share my screen shortly. Should you just let me know when I'm ready to show my screen?
I'm hoping you should be able to do it now.
Okay, yep.
Yay!
Oops. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. So tonight we'll talk about visiting Flanders, about cycling, beer, chocolate, and a whole lot more. So fasten your seatbelts and let's get started. There's three big buckets tonight. We'll talk about number one, geography, core travel experiences, and then what's new in 2021. I figured that's also a good topic to talk about since we're at the end of this year. So on paper, not a lot, but we'll really deep dive into each different category here. First one is very short, and then number 2 and 3 will be a little bit longer. Geography, very easy. What is Flanders? So Flanders is basically a province within the country of Belgium, but Belgium is super tiny. So there's only 2. There's us, Flanders, and then in the south is the French-speaking part, and that is Wallonia. On a national level, there is no Belgium tourist office anymore. That got shut down 13 years ago. So now only the 2 provinces promote the destination. But in terms of arrivals, 95% of Canadians that do travel to Belgium actually go to the Flemish part of the country. 6 major cities in our region that we represent: Brussels, Antwerp, Bruges, Ghent, Leuven, and Michelin. In the heart of Europe, very close to everything else: Paris, London, Amsterdam, Cologne. All those cities are less than 2 hours away. So it's very easy to make as part of a pan-European vacation. It's super easy to travel by train. And also in terms of size, Flanders, if you want to compare to anything in Canada, is roughly 2 times the GTA, so the Greater Toronto Area. So which on the one hand shows how tiny Flanders is or how huge the GTA is. Now let's move on to our second bucket, the core travel experiences, and we'll break it down into 5 different categories: gastronomy, art and heritage, cycling, fashion, and so much more. Where gastronomy and cycling will take up the biggest part of the presentation, but we'll also dabble a little bit into art and heritage and a little bit into fashion. So those are the smaller pieces. So let's just talk about the gastronomy. Why is gastronomy really outstanding in Flanders? Well, first and foremost, the fact that it is in the heart of Europe, in the center of Europe, shows that there were a lot of different influences from different areas across Europe that influenced the kitchen, the creativity in Flanders. Over the history, Flanders was part of France, of Holland, of Austria, of Germany. So all the different cultural influences manifest itself in the kitchen, in the cooking of Belgium. You know, think of the Belgian beers. There's a lot of different varieties out there, different flavors. There's very unique fermentation processes out there that support all those different varieties and flavors. On a very interesting side note, every beer has its own tasting glass. And the reason for that is that beer needs to breathe, interact with air to some degree, and some beers need a little bit more air, some beers need less air. So each beer has its own unique tasting glass. And Belgians take beer very, very seriously, just like the French take the wine very seriously. There's a lot of beer and food pairings going on. Beer cooking with beer, beer cuisine, stews that are simmered with beer and cooked with beer. Lots of traditional breweries that you can visit, beer museums that you can go to, lots of beer cafes, and of course, a gazillion beer festivals and beer tours that you can be on. Let's just put some numbers to that. There's over 340 breweries in Belgium. Somebody attempted to count how many different beers we have, somewhere between 16 to 1700 different beers. It's a little bit hard to count. I barely can keep track of that. Over 25 million hectoliters of beer are brewed in Belgium. The world's largest beer brewing company is located in Flanders and Leuven, Anheuser-Busch InBev. 70% of all Belgian beer brewed in Belgium is actually exported. Some of the best beer cafes in the world are located. International awards that we win for beer, chocolate, and Belgian beer culture is a UNESCO World Heritage. So cheers to that. So just a couple of inspirational images that show that beer is very, very central in everyday's life and experience there. Maybe a couple of tips if you want to experiment with beer and food pairings, because you can also do it at home. If you try to do that, generally speaking, the dish and the beer should always have the same flavor content or the same flavor intensity. So a light dish is best paired with a light beer, and a more robust dish is best paired with a more robust beer. If you do opt for harmony, you don't necessarily have to, but if you do opt for harmony, then sour, sweet, bitter should always be present in an equal amount, both in the dish and the beer. And in addition to the dish itself, the way it is prepared is very important. Whether or not you choose a mild beer or a beer with a strong character depends on whether the dish is stewed, baked, or fried. And naturally, you follow a logical sequence when you select the dishes as well as the beer. So a relatively mild light beer is perfect for an appetizer or starter. And a more characterful and a stronger beer is more suited for the main course. And then beers with a more specific sweet, sour, or fruity flavor are great as a dessert or served with a dessert. And in the course of the meal, you slowly progress from a relatively mild to a more pronounced flavor, and from a low alcohol to the stronger beer. So those are just some high-level basic tips that might help you too in your kitchen, in your cooking. Moving on, and for whatever reason, my slide doesn't want to transition right now. Let me just check what is going on. Sorry. Let's talk about chocolates. So chocolate is also very big in Belgium. Here a photo from one of my favorite chocolate stores. We produce over 660,000 tons of chocolate every year, and you've guessed it right, the majority is exported. There's a lot of innovative chocolate products out there, creative, shocking combination of the finest quality. And if you thought wasabi and chocolate doesn't go together, yes, it does. I know various chocolatiers that work with wasabi and chocolate. Every village and every city has a variety of chocolatiers. And by chocolatiers, I'm talking about the small, bespoke, mom and pop stores, over 320 of those. And those are the exciting ones. Of course, you can always pick up your Godiva Belgian chocolate box from your local Safeway supermarket, but Godiva is just a big factory. The small bespoke chocolate makers, that's really what counts. Lots of chocolate museums in various cities, chocolate workshops that you can actually book with a chocolate maker. You can go on a chocolate tour, and we eat chocolate, cook with it, use it for health benefits and wellness, because you've probably read, dark chocolate is really good for you. And there's also various guides that talk about, the best chocolate shops, and it's a great resource that you can actually utilize for your benefit. Of course, another usual suspect in terms of the cuisine are the Belgian waffles, the fries, mussels and Brussels, and of course, high-end fine dining. So when it comes to high-end fine dining, typically what people refer to is the Michelin restaurant guide. So let's just talk about it. So Michelin has a restaurant guide for Belgium and Luxembourg. And when I talk about Michelin star dining, there's sometimes some looks that I get because people don't know much about it. And they ask me, oh, there's Michelin star dining in Flanders. I have no idea that there is actually anything going on in your region. Really? I just don't know how many restaurants you have. I think maybe there's 3 or 4 Michelin star restaurants in Belgium, if at all. Why don't you just tell me how many there are? Okay, I'm happy to tell you. There are 128 restaurants that have a Michelin star in Belgium. You're kidding? No, I'm not kidding. That is impressive. Wow. So 128 Michelin star rated restaurants on a per capita basis. It's one of the highest numbers in the world. So a little bit of a middle side note or background, how Michelin star dining came about. I find actually the story interesting. So when we talk about Michelin star or the Michelin guide, we usually talk about the Michelin red guides. You saw it earlier on the slide, it's a red guidebook. It's been published annually since 1900. It was first published in France to boost tire sales. Yes, the Michelin Star Dining Guide is the same company that produces the Michelin tires. Belgian restaurants have been included since 1904. The inspectors were completely anonymous, so it's really firewalls within the company to really make sure they're independent. And the star rating that we know nowadays was developed between 1926 and 1936. So again, originally developed to boost tire sales because first, when it came out in 1900, there were 4,000 registered cars in all of France. So assuming Michelin had 100% market share, just for the sake of the argument, they sold 20,000 tires, the 4 plus the spare. So if you're a tire company, you want to sell more tires. So how do you sell more tires? Well, you tell people where to eat, so they need to drive there and wear out the car, wear out the tires, and buy more tires. Originally, a 1-star restaurant is a very good restaurant in its category, meaning it was worth a stop on a tour that you're on. A 2-star restaurant is an excellent, has excellent cooking, worth a detour. So worth a detour from the tour that you are on. And a 3-star is exceptional cuisine. It's just worth a trip on its own, just by itself. So it's a little bit of a background story how this Michelin star dining guide came about. A little bit more specifically, so the 128 restaurants account for 152 stars. 75% of those Michelin star rated restaurants in Belgium are actually in our area. There's a 3-star restaurant, 2 stars, and 105 that have 1 star. Totally in Belgium, there's over 17,000 restaurants, over 10,000 pubs, 22 hotel management schools, over 2,000 chocolate shops. Bruges alone has 50 of those. And of course, the world's largest chocolate producer is also located in our country. So needless to say, the numbers speak for themselves. We'll take care of you. You don't need to bring your own food. You're in good hands. The food is really world class. Dining is really like a national pastime in Flanders, and dinners can take a long time. It's not uncommon for Belgians to spend maybe 3 or 4 hours at dinner. And there's lots of unique locations out there and a lot of local products that is used. We already talked about the numbers of restaurants and stars. There's also a lot of young and very talented chefs that we call the Flemish kitchen rebels. And there's actually a national contest where they need to compete every year. The Belgian fries is actually also an intangible heritage. Lots of unique locations where you can eat and old castles along the canals. Lots of food events, gastronomy, where you said that you work with beer, you work with the food. And you can also book cooking classes with a Michelin star chef. So there's a lot of possibilities to explore the food. Let's move on to the second core travel experiences, the art and the heritage. That is still very much omnipresent today. All the different layers from the past are still present. What do you see here is the Grand Place in Brussels, which is UNESCO World Heritage. That's also one of the reasons why people want to come. They want to see the plazas, squares, castles, cathedrals, cobblestones, experience old Europe in all its beauty. They might want to go to Bruges, take a canal boat ride, see the UNESCO World Heritage City of Bruges. maybe see some of the artwork, the Ghent altarpiece, which is the first Northern Renaissance painting. You might have seen this movie in a 2014 Hollywood movie called The Monuments Man, which is a true story where at the end of World War II, the American GIs got to move into Europe and rescue all the artwork that the Nazis want to destroy and burn up. So they move in and rescue the artwork, the Ghent altarpiece. That's the painting they had to find. If you've seen a movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you've not seen it, just rent it, it's worth it. Or here the Atelier of Rubens, so still very much present in today's Flanders. But if you think like, oh my God, there's this old stuff, medieval stuff in Belgium, isn't there anything new? Of course, there's modern art, modern architecture, and it makes an eclectic mix of the old and the new. What you see here is the Port Authority in the port of Antwerp. Talking about Antwerp, it also has one of the nicest, most beautiful train stations in the world. Here at the main central train station in the heart of Antwerp. And if you look here on the side, you will actually see fietsenstalls. That's actually the bike storage. There's an underground gigantic bike storage. So for all the commuters, they can just, store their bike there, go to work, and then pick up the bike again, hop on a train and just go home. So again, lots of opportunities to use a bike in Flanders. Which brings us to the next part, cycling, because Flanders is really an international cycling destination. It has a lot to offer. Cycling for all interest and skill levels. If you're just a leisurely cyclist that wants to cycle around in the city for an hour or two, to rent a bike, or maybe to be out there along the canals for 2 or 3 hours or in the afternoon, or really take it seriously, bring your $10,000 custom built carbon fiber bike over there and knock yourself out. The bandwidth is there from very simple to intermediate to advanced. All interest levels can be covered in Flanders. So as I said, if you're a cycling aficionado and you fall into this category, we can do that. We can do the 5-6 day tours where you're out there with your buddies, with your friends, and you're out there, cycling. You just hire a van company that hauls your luggage. You're out there on the iconic cobblestones here that are part of the Tour of Flanders. And it's like literally for everyone. It's not limited to any like age or gender. It is for all age groups, all skills. Everybody is welcome. And if you do more the leisurely side, you don't want to change your clothing, you just want to wear your regular street clothing because you're not such a hardcore cyclist. It's flat, it's easy along the canals. Just rent a bike for a few hours, be out there, pack up the kids and the family. And also, if you don't have, so to speak, certain physical skills, we have bike rental companies out there that cater to the handicapped, people with a disability, to make sure that the destination is really accessible for everyone. Because just because you have a certain handicap, you should not be excluded from the experience. So bike rental places all around the city, easy to rent a bike at the train station, in different parts of town, rent a bike, super, super easy to do that. And as I said, you're out in the fresh air, cycle around, everything is signposted, easy to navigate. You can do BMX. We've hosted the BMX World Championships a few times. If you're into cyclocross, here this is at the Sven Nys Cyclocross Experience Center. This is actually some of the photos I actually took myself while I was there. You can do indoor track racing. The 6 Days of Flanders, of Ghent, sorry, 6 Days of Ghent is a very famous indoor track race in November. Fortunately, not this year. Out in the countryside, cycling through lakes or in trees. That's in the Limburg area. We'll get to that in a minute, a little more details. Or you can visit cycling museums here and learn about the history of different bikes and the Ronde van Vlaanderen. Here's the cycling museum in Oudenaarde that I visited a few years years ago, and you can see all the progression of bikes here at the Cycling Museum in Course, where you can all again experience the iconic Tour of Flanders. And then, of course, when it comes to cycling, let's not forget about the food and loading up on the carbs, and making sure that you recuperate from your long ride out there. So also cycling themed restaurants that you can visit. So let's talk a little bit about the routes that we have.
Routes.
So there is a cycling knot network that was invented or put in place a few years ago. As you can see, it's all based on numbers. And that was actually thanks to the work of a mining engineer. Because before the numbering system was in place, it was a little bit hard to navigate. And you had to remember, so to speak, a typical, okay, I'm getting to the next village, and then on Main Street, take the third right and make sure I don't get lost and remember street names. And he thought it's like way too complicated. And he basically transferred the underground numbering system. They use an underground mine to the above surface, and then laid a whole grid system all across Belgium, and then numbered every single cycling road with numbers. And it's now super easy. And the whole cycling road network is over 12,000 kilometers long. It's really an ingenious signposting system. You can plan your routes in advance on a computer with an app or with an old-fashioned map if you wanted to. And then basically all you do is remember those numbers, the intersections. Here's a little bit of an example, what it looks like. And it's like, it is super, super easy to use, because there is a numbering post every couple of 100 feet or 100 meters, and you just follow those numbers. You can do thematic loops. So if you are interested in doing a theme, let's say beer, architecture, you want to do an artist, Rubens, castles. So there's different themes out there. They are for all skill levels, for easy, beginners, family, and for the advanced cyclists. There's also a long distance cycling network. The Flemish long distance cycling network includes 10 routes, and it's over 1,500 kilometers. However, there is an update that we'll talk about a little bit later, because they will phase out the long distance cycling routes. They've been in place for about 15 years, and there will be new routes, and I'll talk that in what's new in 2021. There's, of course, a lot of hotels that cater to the cyclists, over 400 hotels, bed and breakfast places. And then what it means, they are very close to an official cycling route within 5 kilometers. They do offer special amenities services for cyclists, like secure bicycle shed, bicycle repair kit, cycling mat, bicycles for hire, just in case, let's say, yours breaks down. And of course, comfortable beds to rest your legs and your head. Bicycle racing is very big, with the biggest race, of course, the Tour of Flanders, which happens usually, unlike this year, the first weekend of April. So the Tour of Flanders also has a cycling race museum, which was created at the arrival city in Oudenaarde. It's a unique visitor center where you can really plunge into the atmosphere and the history of the cycling race. There's also signposted Tour of Flanders cycling routes that have been created for amateurs, where you can really create or recreate your Tour of Flanders cycling experience. And then, by the way, before the official race, there's the Sportief that happens the day before, where you can actually ride part of the course that the professional riders will ride then the following day. And the Sportief has 3 different lengths. There's a shorter version, about 35K, a medium version, about 89K, and then the long version that you can ride. And you have to register and then get a number, and then you can ride those. We've also created within Visit Flanders the Flandrian Challenge. So you can ride like a Flandrian. We've teamed up with Strava, which is an app. And you can also ride certain sections that are signposted in Flanders, and then collect points on your app on your phone. And then once you complete the whole Flandrian Challenge, there's actually a plaque that will be placed in Oudenaarde. So you are then forever the Flandrian Challenge winner or participant. And of course, the Tour of Flanders is also, Tour of France is a frequent guest in Flanders. So they do stop by because, as I said, there's great cycling going on in our area. It is really a festive event that people line up here on the site, you know, when before the cyclists come through. It is a big festival here. Here's a photo that I took myself last year where I was at the Tour of Flanders. You know, it is an event where people socialize, gather, and of course, needless to say, this is all pre-COVID-19, so we'll see what the future brings. And then you just wait until the race comes by, and they do usually come by at certain spots 2 or 3 times. And then you look on the map where the next spots are, and then you just move on. And then all the people that were in this spot after the 3rd time the race comes through, then move on then to the next spot to see the race again come through the next spot. And of course, we celebrate the winners. So let's just watch a short video, and let's make sure I do properly share my audio before I play this. Let me just double check to make sure my audio is shared. Share computer sound. Sorry about that.
We are in Flanders at the moment, in Belgium. We're riding some amazing roads, both on tarmac, on gravel, and some cobbles as well.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. I pressed the wrong button, sorry.
We are in Flanders at the moment, in Belgium. We're riding some amazing roads, both on tarmac, on gravel, and some cobbles as well.
I think the hardest part about riding in Flanders are all the steep hills and the cobbles. I'm not really used to cobbles, but after this weekend, I think...
Small country lanes, tight turns, that we're not used to maybe.
Twisting, turning, going up and down all the time. You don't know what to expect around the next corner.
Come here in the spring for the spring classics. Find a good spot on a steep hill and watch the pros, and then go ride yourself.
When we came back from riding, we went straight to a pub where we had some really nice local beers.
Flanders is definitely an excellent destination for cycling, with the history, all the racing, and yeah, it's just seeped in it.
You can see it everywhere. Everybody knows everything about cycling and people cheer you on.
All right, so let's get ready for cycling in Flanders. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of some idea and inspiration what can be done when it comes to cycling in Flanders. Moving on to the other travel theme, fashion, just in case I wanted to mention that, because there is literally like a very long tradition of fashion and design in the country, starting back in the Middle Ages with tapestry, lace, and now for the last 50 years, the Fashion Academy in Antwerp. So if you do have any inclination for haute couture and high-end fashion, Antwerp has the 3rd best fashion academy in the world. So lots of opportunities to go fashion shopping for gloves, shoes, hats, dresses, tailor-made clothing, and of course, diamonds. Antwerp is still the diamond capital of the world. Depending on what diamond category you're talking about, up to 80% of all diamonds are still cut and traded in the city of Antwerp. And then the fifth, the more travel theme. Of course, there's so much more, but I just picked one. There's also a lot of like historic World War I sites that you can still visit in West Flanders, Flanders Fields, and Ypres, the John McCrae sites, so still very much present today. So how do we actually summarize all those 5 different travel themes: the art, the history, the gastronomy, the cycling, the fashion? And we've come up with a phrase: these are all the Flemish masters, and originally referred to just the painters like the Jan van Eyck, the Rubens, that created the artwork. But now, of course, we also have modern Flemish masters, which are the Michelin star chefs, the beer brewers, the chocolatiers, the fashion designers, the frame builders that build all those amazing bicycle frames, like, you know, Eddie Merckx bicycles. So these are now our modern day Flemish masters. And there's a quick also video that talks about the Flemish masters.
For ages, Flanders has been home to the old masters. Still today, Flanders is the place where new ideas are born against a historical backdrop. Are you ready to explore? Nibble on the chocolate beard of Rubens' self-portrait. Experience the winter in Flanders like white powder on your waffles, or pedal your way through Bruegelian landscapes. Adore the mystic lamb in the Ghent altarpiece, showing the holy traditions. When Icarus falls, Antwerp's fashion catches. Observe Van Eyck, the first master of oil painting. As a true Margaretha Van Eyck, eat Belgian fries with pride and enjoy the craftsmanship of one of Belgium's foamiest beers. Where Rubens' cross descents, move on the lines of his art. Taste the history of Flanders' culinary treasures. Be a Bruegel rebel angel and party in the land of tomorrow. Come to the heart of Europe to wear, taste, hear, smell, show, and honor our Flemish masters. Together, they make Flanders state of the art. Are you ready to stir your senses?
So that is the theme that summarizes all those different travel experiences. So let's now wrap things up slowly but surely and briefly talk about what's new next year. Off the beaten path experiences are really big. Needless to say that the pandemic has a little bit changed the travel requirements, also domestically. The bigger cities are not so much hip anymore, quote unquote hip. People trying to get away, get more to rural areas. The 3 areas that stand out in terms of Flanders and being rural are the coast, the Ardennes, the Flemish Ardennes, and also the Limburg area. The coast is actually not very long. It's a very short coastline in Belgium, but it's very easy to reach. It's relaxing, family friendly. You can do some hikes around the coast. You can also bike around there. The Flemish Ardennes Triangle, perfect for cycling, hiking as well. Some rolling hills in the southern part. Some nice villages out there. Limburg area is really the area in Belgium that has the best infrastructure for cycling. So cycling through trees is actually this cycling network that they actually built in Limburg here. You can also cycle through this lake here right in Limburg. If you notice in the back, there's some hot air balloons. You can also do that if you just want to see the landscape from above. We have or are creating new cycling routes, and those cycling routes are actually replacing those long distance routes that I talked about earlier. Those long distance routes were created 15 years ago, but we're now placing those new routes in place by next year. Originally, the plan was to roll them out within the next 3 or 4 years, but we're fast tracking those new routes now. The first one to open up is the coastal route that is 93 kilometers. And we're also making sure that those new cycling routes are all interconnected within the European route system. So they reach into Germany, reach into France, reach into Holland, because we do realize it's all of Europe that counts, and you might want to venture out and get into Holland, get into France, and that is just quite all right. We will also host this year the UCI World Championships in cycling. So they are from the 18th of September to the 26th of September. And there's competitions and medals to be won in 11 categories. So that is also a big event for us. So if you're interested in maybe checking it out on site, by all means, contact OK Cycling, and I'm sure we can put some interesting trip together maybe for September. Quick elephant in the room that we need to address, COVID-19. So right now the situation is that, of course, Belgium is closed for travel for North Americans, includes Canada and the US. But on the good news is, quote unquote, good that the vaccines are there. It just remains to be seen how adoption is, how rollout is. Hopefully come April, May, we'll see the rollout. And also on the European side, all European countries now have agreed to use the same color coding map. Because before, in the past, every country in Europe used different color codes, used different criteria. Now, all European countries have agreed to use the same color coding. So that is universal. And the next step is now that we also trying to unify the measures that we're taking. So what does it mean when it's red? So that when you're in France, when you're in Holland, and in Germany, it means the same thing. And what does it mean when it's orange? And there's a lot of also other initiatives that are going on in terms of joint border reopening, so that we're all uniform, especially when it comes to arrivals from long-haul markets from across the Atlantic. We do have a lot of resources available. Info-coronavirus.be, that is the federal Belgian government website that talks about the different updates for the whole country. On our VISITFLANDERS.com website, we also have some COVID-19 updates. And the European Union has one website where they talk about all of Europe called reopen.europa.eu. So that might also be an interesting website if your travel plan foresees you visiting various European countries next year, then, so to speak, your one-stop shop where you can just check out all those different European countries that are applicable. So thank you so much for your attention. Remember, Flanders, Belgium is all about outstanding great gastronomy, art and heritage, cycling, the main topic we talked about today, but also fashion, and a couple of other issues. Stay safe and see you next year.
Big thanks to Marco. I hope you guys can hear me.
So I have one question that I got here. What languages are spoken and understood in Flanders? So Flanders, the official language is Dutch. That's what Flemish is. It's basically just a different Dutch dialect. Same like what's the difference between American English and Canadian English? Both are English, or American English and British English, both are English. Same with Flemish and Dutch, it's Dutch. So that is spoken there, but everybody speaks English. Not sure if there's any other questions.
I don't see any other questions right now, but if anyone has any and they want to send them in later, we're more than happy to send you an answer. Manny, did you want to say something?
Sure.
Oh, I'm losing Manny.
Watching the program, and thank you for joining us. And we look forward to any questions anyone has, as Judy says. And next year, it should be a great year when we finally get out of that. Marco did a super job in the presentation. It really was perfect. Thank you, Marco.
Thanks, Manny. Thanks for having me on. My pleasure to talk to you guys. I said, if you're ready to book your next cycling adventure, contact Judy or Manny. They're awesome guys to work with. They got it's a great company going on, and you know, just don't be shy. Reach out to them.
Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for coming out tonight, and stay safe, and hopefully we'll all be cycling again this time way before this time next year, next spring. Thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Night.
Bye.
Thanks. Yep.